As the ship sails through the clear oceans, the captain sees in the distance a small island with a man stranded on it. The ship goes to rescue the man, who tells the captain he's been stuck there for the past 10 years, all alone on the island. Before we leave, he tells the captain, "I'd like you to come and see everything that I've built here over the past 10 years. He shows the captain magnificent gardens that he planted, a mansion that he built, even a basketball court. He then points at 2 beautiful buildings and says those are the country clubs. The country clubs? 2? Aren't you here all alone? Why 2 country clubs? The confused captain asks. The man goes on to answer with great seriousness. 1 is the country club I go to. The other is the country club I will not go to. I built it for those who disagree with me. Sadly, this story has come to represent what's going on in the United States and indeed in Europe and around the world today. Political polarization and divisiveness have come to be the norm rather than the exception. Keith Chen of UCLA and Ryan Rolla of Washington State University studied the movements of Americans across the United States on Thanksgiving of 2016 using tracking data from cell phones. Yes, Big Brother is watching. And what they found was both fascinating and heartbreaking. If you were a Republican or a Democrat, and going back home for Thanksgiving meant going back to a district that held opinions that were the opposite than your own, then you either stopped or shortened the rate at which you went home. Thanksgiving meals in mixed political environments were on average 20 to 30 minutes shorter than in other places. Interestingly, for every 1,000 political ads that ran in a given area, Thanksgiving meals got 1.5 minutes shorter. So in high-tension places like Florida, you had an 1 hour and 12-minute reduction in Thanksgiving meals. Pretty sad, isn't it? We find it difficult to go back home for Thanksgiving if people back home don't share our own opinions. We find it too difficult to sit at the table and eat with people who disagree with us. Now I know there are probably those who would say, is that so bad? Shorter family gatherings? Works for me. However, political polarization also comes at a high social and economic cost. A study published recently in the American Journal of Political Science found that political divisions and partisanship lead people to forego economic opportunities. Think about that. We're willing to take jobs that pay less, miss out on business opportunities, just to avoid the company of people who disagree with us. Now, there are some who might argue, perhaps we can figure out a world like that. Maybe we can figure out a world in which we just hang out with people who think the way we think, we just sit with folks who believe what we believe, and live happily ever after. However, there are several problems with that. If we believe that free markets and that the free market economy allows people to thrive and prosper, then eliminating or reducing divisions and partisanship can help the economy work. After all, there's so much a market can do if it's constantly being narrowed by artificial and arbitrary boundaries. Furthermore, polarization destabilizes and depletes major governmental institutions we all rely on. After all, there's so much a government agency can accomplish if it's being flung in a radically different direction every few years. And then there are the social consequences of political polarization. As humans, we tend to push even those who agree with us to greater extremes in what social scientists call group polarization. The fact is, we'll never remain set in our own opinions. If we sit around people who agree with what we believe and think exactly the way we think, we end up pushing each other to greater extremes. We end up radicalizing each other, something that can lead to a dangerous derangement of society. To visualize this, think of yourself as leaving a soccer stadium with the fans of a team who just lost a big game. Imagine yourself leaving with those fans who are leaving all as one group versus you leaving that stadium with those fans leaving as individuals. You probably wouldn't want to be around when all those angry soccer fans are leaving the stadium as a group, and so you probably wouldn't want to live in a world that looks like that either. Political polarization is something that should bother us, and it does. It bothers us. A study done by the American Psychological Association found that 59% of Americans experience stress from current levels of partisanship and divisiveness. I've yet to have met someone from the 41% not stressed out by this. And so the question then becomes, what is it that we as individuals can do to reduce the tensions? What is it that we can do to help bring down the plague that's striking our country from sea to shining sea? What is it that we can do to reduce tensions here and around the world? To answer this question, I'd like you to join me as I share with you a personal experience. My wife and I have, we'll call this a unique practice of inviting people we don't know to our Friday night dinners. At these dinners, we enjoy delicious food, have great conversations, and love meeting new people. It was August of 2016, at the peak of the Trump-Clinton race. At our table, we had someone that was working on the Clinton campaign, as well as several Trump supporters. It was both amusing and intriguing to see the betrayed looks in their eyes as they discovered they're sitting inches away from people who held such mutually unacceptable positions to their own. And yet, as the evening went on, it was refreshing to see how they warmed up to each other, how they started respecting one another, how they started listening to each other. By the time the evening was over, they left as friends. And so today, more than a year and a half later, we're still hosting. We've seen tables with people from what some would call the alt-right sitting side by side with people from what some would call the alt-left and talking and listening, becoming friends, in some cases even flirting with each other. So what made this work? What enabled people to go from being foes to being friends, to overcome their political rivalries? The realization that they'll be stuck at the same table for the next few hours, bound by the social expectation of civility and politeness, help people realize that getting along now can be a really good idea, and that they can have a really good time this evening. But if they really want to enjoy this evening, they'd have to do that together. Sitting with another person with some delicious chestnut chicken and butternut squash, talking to the other person, help people realize the other person is not so bad, and that they can really enjoy each other's company. But for them to really enjoy this evening and each other's company, they would have to look beyond their differences. What's true in that case is true for us as a people, as humans across the world. If we want to get along with each other, if we want to thrive or even just survive, we need to realize that we are stuck here together, bound by our common humanity. We need to realize that the keys to our shared happiness are held by each other. If we want to succeed and thrive in this world, we need to realize that we are bound to be here together. And that for us to do it can be a really enjoyable thing, but we'd have to do it together. Realizing that we share a world with people whose opinions we don't share, and that that's fine. Internalizing that we can enjoy this world so much more with each other than without each other can help rewrite the way in which we disagree with others. It can help us see the humanity and dignity and those sitting across the table or even across the aisle from us. Google ran a study trying to figure out what it is that makes their most successful employees most successful. Was it the IQ, the technical know-how, or perhaps the education that made the really best employees so good? What they found was astonishing. It wasn't the IQ, it wasn't the education, it wasn't even the technical know-how that made the best employees so good. The recipe for the success of an employee was their ability to work well with the people around them. People's ability to overlook differences and engage with each other. People's ability to work across the aisle and across the table and work well with various kinds of people or anyone around them were the greatest predictor for success in the company. And what's true for Google in this case is true for all of us. We're all hardwired to need each other. We all do best when we cooperate with others, when we bridge differences and work successfully with those around us. And so if we want to look for a better future, if we want to see a better tomorrow, we need to start seeing how we can overlook the differences. We need to see how we can look beyond our differences, realize that we're stuck here together, and make it a great stay. The holiest day in the Jewish calendar is the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. On this day, Jews stand in synagogue all day fasting and praying for forgiveness. We do this because we believe that on this day, God forgives all our sins. All sins, except for one. A sin that hurt someone else, having done something to someone that affected them negatively, cannot be forgiven even by God, even on the holiest day. For us to make amends and for us to work things out with another person, we need to go to that person and apologize to them and work things through for them. Working through issues that are between us is a work that's for us. Even God can't help us if we don't go to the other person and make amends and try and see what it is that we can do to work out a better tomorrow. There's a beautiful world out there with endless and expanding possibilities for all of us. But for us to really enjoy it, we have to do it together. Thank you.